lead you through this morning's proceedings. It's great to have you all here. So good morning, Excellencies. Good morning, former heads of state, distinguished leaders amongst us, partners, and friends. So I woke up this morning with a big nosebleed because of the altitude. I don't know why ETTIM chooses to have the Accra reset in Davos, in the mountains of Davos, and now in the altitude of ADDIS. But ADDIS is our capital, so we're delighted to be here. So at Davos, 3 weeks ago, there was one speech that caught the attention of the global media, which was Mark Carney's speech. But another speech which went, or didn't catch as much attention, was that of His Excellency President Mahama, who said that Africa must pull itself by its own bootstraps. In a passionate address, he declared that the continent had lost its sovereignty and was caught in a dependency trap. This was both true in areas of aid spending as well as security matters, adding that when it comes to natural resources, we supply the world's critical minerals but capture almost none of the value. So the Accra reset began with a very specific ambition: health sovereignty. We met on the margins of the UN General Assembly to ask a simple but urgent question: why does Africa still rely on external systems for our own health security? But very quickly, we confronted a deeper truth. Health sovereignty cannot exist in isolation. It depends on industrial capacity, on capital formation, on digital infrastructure, on free movement of talent, on sovereign negotiation power, etc., etc. So the Accra reset evolved from a sectoral conversation to a systemic one, from health sovereignty to economic sovereignty. Because what Africa faces today is not a sectorial deficit, it is a structural one. And if Mark Carney said something, he said in public what we already knew, that the system is rigged against us. So the conventional development orthodoxy has not solved our problems. Settling for the lowest common denominator has not worked. And waiting until everyone agrees has slowed progress to a crawl. So the question becomes, what approach will work? We move from the Accra reset to the ADDIS reckoning. The model is clear. This morning is not about declarations, it's about execution platforms. It's about sovereign prosperity spheres. It's about moving from dependency to agency. And with that, we begin. The video, please.
Africa is entering a defining decade. A decade where population, technology, capital, and geopolitics will converge to shape prosperity or deepen vulnerability. The choices made now will echo for generations. For too long, progress has been constrained by a triple burden: marginalization from global value creation, vulnerability to external shocks, dependence on systems designed elsewhere. It has not been for lack of ambition, but from limits in sovereignty as practice, sovereignty as a lived experience. A great African writer once said that a tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. True sovereignty is not declared either. It is built through the ability to mobilize capital, to negotiate from strength, to coordinate across borders, and to deliver at scale. Sovereignty is execution writ large. This is the purpose of the Accra Reset, a head-of-state anchored movement to redesign how Africa finances, integrates, and executes its transformation, and also how it heals itself and connects its children, moving beyond fragmented interventions towards sovereign systems that work. Transformation demands capital. Yes, but it must be capital aligned with African priorities. Financing that flows through the veins of African innovation, mobilizing long-term investment, crowding in private capital, and aligning the after treaties and protocols. From digital identity through the after number of SMEs through the Global Skills Passport, to give meaning to free movement and talent circulation to mineral value chain transformation, the Accra Reset is moving sovereignty from the abstract to the concrete foundation of socio-economic power. Whether it is artificial intelligence driving the digital training protocols or the tokenization of natural wealth, a new era now unfurls. Development as usual is fading. The reset unsettles the old order, and everywhere the new abundant spirit rises from the days of old to rhyme with Gen Z rhythms. The sound of progress, however, needs the melody of union, of the continental community, of nations acting together at scale. That is why the Accra Reset is advancing a big new idea: sovereign prosperity spheres, cross-border platforms where policy, finance, production, and infrastructure align to unlock shared growth. From fragmentation to scale, from potential to prosperity. And prosperity shall not be siloed. The borders will be transcended, but for what? Behold, a resounding chorus of connections and interlinkages. Skills, resources, opportunities, ideas flowing across national frontiers and filling up the continent. A border-free Africa must rise forth like Timbuktu on the wings of an ancestral bird, free, soaring, unhindered, powered by a digital public infrastructure, by innovative tools and system shifts. Talent must circulate, markets must expand, and productivity must rise. Free movement is our engine of prosperity. Long have we spoken of this dream, but now we know. Execution is power. From reforming global health architecture, to building industrial ecosystems, to strengthening sovereign negotiation capacity through Top Gun's certification program. From the high-level panel on re-architecting global health to the policy exchanges, peer learning platforms, and communities of practice. Aligning the global south on best practices and the smartest ideas. Each piece in the ensemble plays the beat of the real action, and each climax is us in action. Turning plans into real change on the ground, real uplifts in the spirit of our people. This is the work of the Accra Reset. Practical, measurable, deliverable. Africa's time has come. Accra Reset in Addis Ababa is the moment that was foretold. For far too long we have declared and waited. Now we rise to organize for transformation, to finance our transition, to integrate our prosperity, to execute our future. This is Accra Reset, and this is the ADDIS reckoning.
Thank you. If I may ask you all to stand for the African Union anthem, please.
Together to defend our
Please remain standing for the anthem of the Republic of Ghana. Thank you. You may be seated. And to make our welcome remarks, I'd like to call upon Her Excellency Amma Twum-Amoah, AU Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development.
Your Excellency President John Mahama of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency former President of the Republic of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Your Excellency former President Mauritius, Madam Amina Fakim, Your Excellencies here present, Honorable Ministers, Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to welcome you to this high-level breakfast convening under the banner of the Accra Reset, ADDIS Reckoning. We gather at a moment that demands clarity, discipline, and coherence. The global financing environment is tightening. Physical pressures across our continent are intensifying. External partnerships are recalibrating. In this context, Africa's response cannot afford to be fragmented or reactive. It must be coordinated, it must be deliberate, and above all, it must be sovereign. The Accra Reset, therefore, is not another declaration. It is not another communique to be achieved. It is a call to disciplined execution. It is about aligning political ambition with institutional delivery and ensuring that continental frameworks translate into measurable outcomes for all of our member states. Excellencies, the agenda of our integration, which is anchored in the African Continental Free Trade Area, is one of the most consequential undertakings of our generation. It represents a deliberate choice to build scale, competitiveness, and resilience through unity. Yet, integration cannot be measured solely by the movement of goods and capital. It must also be reflected in the movement, protection, and empowerment of people. An integrated Africa, therefore, must be an Africa where opportunity moves as freely as trade. Economic integration must rest on strong public systems. Mobility must be structured, rules-based, and anchored in protection. Labor mobility must be governed with clarity and reciprocity. Qualifications must be recognized. Rights must be safeguarded. Social protection systems must become portable across borders. Health and humanitarian coordination must be strengthened to support, not undermine, cross-border movement. Structured mobility does not weaken sovereignty. It strengthens sovereignty by transforming borders from barriers into platforms for shared prosperity. If the AFCFTA is the engine of our integration, Then the systems that protect and empower our people are its foundation, and foundations do matter. But execution requires more than policy alignment. It requires interoperability of institutions, predictable regulatory environments, investments in digital, social, and that integration without social cohesion is fragile. Integration without resilience is exposed, and integration with the credibility of our continental projects will not be judged by the framework we adopt, but by the outcome we deliver. I thank you all.
Thank you, Madam. So our next speaker is the architect of the Accra Reset, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, please. I can invite you to the stage. Thank you. Round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. Let me express my regrets for the late start of this program. So we need to catch up with time. And so I'll say, Excellencies, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, we're all distinguished. I want to commend the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yesterday we had a high-level summit breakfast meeting. The meeting was high level, it was good, but the breakfast was very low level. Today, it looks like he has upped his act a bit. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we gathered this morning not to add another side event to a crowded summit's calendar. We're here because Africa has reached a turning point we cannot afford to ignore. I thank President Ruto, President Al-Sisi, President Tinubu, President Hichilema, President Tshisekedi, President Gnassingbé, and President Lula da Silva, and not the least, Prime Minister Mia Mottley. Your acceptance to serve on the Council reminds us that leadership is often exercised before certainty arrives. Some of us, what the Accra Reset really means. Some imagine just another declaration. Others expect fiery speeches. Accra Reset is an architecture, a framework through which Africa and its partners align finance, health, trade, skills, and technology into a single direction of travel. Our frustrations have given way to determination, sparking breakthrough thinking that will change the calculus of international relations forever. Take, for example, global health. For too long, our health systems have been seen as a drain on our budgets. Through the Accra Reset, every finance minister now understands that health is the foundation of productivity and stability. I'm pleased to announce our high-level panel on reform of global health architecture, which is co-chaired by Professor Peter Piot, Honorable Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Chancellor Elhaj Asai, and Honorable Nisia Trinidade Lima. Reform will be grounded in knowledge of past failures, while animated by future promise. On negotiating power, it is said that sovereignty depends on the people manning the gates. Technical work has begun on our Sovereign Negotiators Certification Program, cultivating a generation of deal makers who can navigate technology agreements, mineral contracts, and complex financing with confidence. On trade and mobility, through the African Continental Free Trade Hub and digital platforms, the League of Free Movement is taking on new meaning. Our global digital skills passport will ensure that the qualifications of young Africans are recognized across platforms and across the world. On global partnerships, the new Bandung spirit is gaining expression. Exchanges with South Korea, Singapore, India, and Indonesia are opening pathways for technological learning and digital trade. AI is becoming embedded in our industrial planning and governance systems. Excellencies, there's a quiet truth we rarely say aloud. For years, Africa's leaders have been asked to choose between ambition and realism. The Accra Reset rejects that false choice. Ambition only becomes realistic when institutions align, when partners listen, and execution becomes a shared responsibility. This morning, therefore, is not a conclusion. It marks the beginning of a more disciplined phase in which ideas must prove themselves through delivery. We must commit to definitive decisions, one, on deal-making, two, on health as a multiplier of wealth, on critical mineral supply and chain intelligence, on the repatriation of African sovereign foreign exchange reserves, and on digital skills passports. We've reflected enough in our meetings over the years, and it's time to commit. It's time to interlock our sovereign prosperity spheres. It is time to transform. This is the ADDIS reckoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. So His Excellency John Mahama first came into my radar when we featured his book in our magazine. His autobiography is called My First Coup d'etat and Other Stories of Africa's Lost Decades. So we can see that from his second term, and it's from his first year during the second term, that he's a man in a hurry. He wants to get things done. It's been an exceptional year. And maybe we should ask presidents to have a break, to come back re-energized and reinvigorated, because they get a lot of things done very quickly. So congratulations, sir. So we're here in a room full of exceptional leaders, current and past. And we've got an exceptional scientist and a leader that we all admire, Her Excellency Amina Gurib Fakim, former president of Mauritius, to also make some remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Excellency President Mahama, President of Ghana, Her Excellency Mama Sirleaf Johnson, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I have been given a huge task because I have been asked to stand in the huge shoes of President Obasanjo. Because together with President Obasanjo, we formed the Circle of Guardians of precisely the Accra Reset. The Accra Reset was born last year in Ghana, rightly so. Africa must reclaim her sovereignty. And one area that comes to my mind, because it's a direct link to the Accra Reset, is the agriculture and the food sector. And this is where, again, Africa needs to grow what she eats and eat what she grows. That is one of the areas of sovereignty. The other thing that also what we're going to be discussing is we're operating in a world where there are, of course, huge global geopolitical tectonic shift, which the President has already alluded to. And increasingly, we find that during the conversations, when we're talking about these geopolitical shifts, we're only mentioning the past world, the old world, but Africa doesn't get mentioned. And yet Africa has been there, funding the first, second, third. If there is a fourth or fifth industrial revolution, Africa will be there serving it through her blood, sweat, and tears. So Africa needs to be there at the table. And if we are not going to be invited to the table, we're going to have to bring our chair to the table. And so on this note, I'll have to say that we have to congratulate the leadership of President Mahama bringing this to the table, bringing this discussion, because sovereignty matters. Thank you, President. Thank you.
And next on stage, representing His Excellency Felix Antoine Tshisekedi from the Democratic Republic of Congo, I'd like to call upon the Minister of Industry of DRC. So the intervention will be in French, so if you can grab your interpreter headsets if you need them.
Je m'excuse, la caprice des machines actuelles. Excellences, Monsieur le Président du Ghana, Excellences, Madame l'ancienne présidente du Libéria, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités, c'est un honneur de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui sur un sujet qui n'est plus seulement une question de géologie, mais le pivot central de la souveraineté africaine au XXIe siècle, savoir la transformation de la région des Grands Lacs en une véritable sphère de prospérité. En effet, je suis Julien Paluku, ministre du Commerce extérieur de la République démocratique du Congo. Et je prends la parole au nom du président de la République démocratique du Congo, son Excellence Félix Antoine Tshisekedi, qui aurait bien voulu être avec vous, mais qui vient d'atterrir seulement il y a quelques minutes ici à Addis Abeba. Il m'a chargé de vous transmettre ses chaleureuses salutations et son soutien total à la tenue des présentes assises. La réflexion qu'il partage avec vous ces jours est articulée autour de quelques points que vous allez découvrir tout à l'heure, à savoir le premier point, c'est le paradoxe de l'abondance. Pendant trop longtemps, la richesse de notre sous-sol a été perçue à travers le prisme du conflit ou de l'extraction brute. Aujourd'hui, le monde traverse une transition énergétique sans précédent. De la Silicon Valley aux usines de batteries européennes, où les regards sont tournés vers la région des Grands Lacs. Le cobalt, le lithium, la tantale et les terres rares ne sont plus de simples commodités. Ils sont devenus les carburants de l'avenir, mais la question qui nous réunit ici est simple. Cet avenir sera-t-il écrit par nous ou pour nous? Au deuxième point, l'Est de la République démocratique du Congo, qui est à la fois le cœur battant de l'Afrique et le point de fracture. L'Est de la RDC n'est pas seulement un réservoir de minéraux critiques, à savoir les coltans, comme je viens de le dire, le lithium, l'étain, les terres rares, mais c'est aussi le théâtre d'un paradoxe tragique. Alors que ces ressources sont indispensables à la transition énergétique mondiale, leur exploitation reste largement entravée par une instabilité chronique dont les acteurs sont connus au regard de tous les rapports qui sont publiés par les experts des Nations Unies. Et donc le cycle de rébellion et l'économie de guerre deviennent presque monnaie courante. Il est donc impératif de souligner l'asymétrie économique dans la région, une part importante des minéraux critiques ici de l'Est de la RDC alimente les statistiques d'exportation de certains pays, y compris les pays du Nord. Alors, 3 piliers dans la refondation de cet environnement qui est macabre. Pour transformer ce potentiel donc en prospérité tangible, la stratégie doit reposer sur 3 impératifs. La première ou le premier impératif, c'est la valeur ajoutée locale qui passe par l'industrialisation de l'Afrique, c'est-à-dire passer de l'extraction à la transformation primaire et secondaire sur place pour stopper l'hémorragie des richesses. Le deuxième impératif, c'est l'intégration régionale et les infrastructures, parce qu'il faut harmoniser nos cadres réglementaires et bâtir des corridors de transport transfrontaliers légaux. Le troisième impératif, c'est la diplomatie des ressources. En tant que détenteurs de ces ressources stratégiques, nous devons exiger des transferts de technologies et des partenariats équitables. Mais quelques recommandations pour terminer. Excellence, le diagnostic est posé. Mais pour briser l'économie de guerre, nous devons passer d'une traçabilité subie à une certification de souveraineté. Et voici donc quelques recommandations. La première, c'est de pouvoir renforcer les mécanismes régionaux de certification de la conférence internationale sur la région des Grands Lacs, qui doit être, ce certificat-là, l'unique passeport crédible pour nos minéraux. La deuxième recommandation importante, c'est l'urgence d'une bourse des minéraux de l'Afrique. Parce que nous pensons que la création d'une plateforme de négoce régionale est importante. Au lieu de laisser nos prix être fixés à Londres ou à Shanghai, nous devons centraliser nos flux certifiés pour influencer les marchés mondiaux. Donc la vision africaine doit être simple, et chaque batterie dans le monde soit le témoin non plus des conflits, mais d'une réussite africaine intégrée et transparente. Excellence, Monsieur le Président, pour que la région des Grands Lacs devienne une sphère de prospérité, nous devons rompre le cycle de la prédation. Cela exige la rupture des chaînes de financement occultes, la transparence des certificats d'origine et une volonté politique commune. Le cobalt, le lithium, l'or, les manganèses, les coltans ne doivent plus être des minerais du conflit, mais les piliers d'une Afrique forte, unie et maîtresse de son destin industriel. La prospérité n'est pas ce que nous extrayons, mais ce que nous construisons avec ce que nous extrayons. Je répète, la prospérité n'est pas ce que nous extrayons de nos sols, c'est ce que nous construisons avec ce que nous extrayons de nos sols. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. And I believe that the Democratic Republic of Congo is today trading itself as pays solution, so a country, a nation of solutions for Africa, and we definitely need a strong DRC for the continent to succeed. So we've heard the charge. Now the question is, how do we operationalize it? So without further ado, I'm going to call upon my co-host, ETTIM, who's from the Africa Champions and obviously leading the Africa Reset, the Accra Reset, who will be interviewing on stage His Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. Your Excellency, please.
Thank you very much, Omar, for handing the baton to me. I have this distinguished privilege to have a quick chat with His Excellency Wamkele Mened, who is a household name everybody knows, the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. An instrument or a treaty that holds, in my view, the key for Africa economics transformation. I'm happy to see Madam Zuma here, the architect of Agenda 2063, the former chairperson of the ADDIS, sitting very modestly and unassumingly. But one of the focal pillars of Agenda 2063 is Africa economics transformation. Now, as Africa aspires to emerge into global emergence, it has to integrate. But in order to integrate, it has to economically transform. In order to economically transform, it has to be able to take control of the ecosystem of SMEs that form the base of our economies to drive trading across the continent. But we can trade if we can produce. So it's a tall order, but the man at the helm of putting this all together and make it work is my brother Wamkele. So today we're here in the spirit of Accra Reset to talk about what he's doing at AFCFTA now with this new digital protocol for AFCFTA, given that we have a continent that has no roads and rails connecting us. The roads and rails rather connect us to the oceans that take all our raw materials away. But at least we have the digital highway that connects us, billions of people on the continent. And so I'd like to first ask His Excellency to tell us a little bit about this digital protocol and what he has in stock for us.
Well, thank you very much. First, let me start by acknowledging our leaders, His Excellency President Mahama, our former heads of states, and of course, Mama, former chairperson of the African Union Commission. I was not able to enter the room in Davos because the Swiss authorities would not allow me. So I'm very happy to be here in Africa for this dialogue. The protocol on digital trade, I would encourage that we view it as one of the tools that is at the disposal of Accra Reset to enable us to move faster in achieving the vision of Accra Reset. We have a projection by the International Finance Corporation that by the year 2050, Africa's digital economy is estimated to be at $712 billion. And that $712 billion comprises the different digital economy sectors, financial services, agricultural technology, health technology, all of these other sectors of Africa's economy that enable accelerated inclusion of young people, informal traders, smallholder farmers. These are all the drivers of Africa's digital economy. And the protocol on digital trade is there as an enabler of that. One of the things that His Excellency the President mentioned in his speech is digital identities and how young people can access the job market through digital tools to trade also across regions of our continent. And we have been focusing on this issue of how digitization can enable young people to enter the job market. The President mentioned a pass, a digital pass, that shall enable any employer across the continent or indeed across the world to identify the skills that are required. So the protocol on digital trade, I would suggest, is one of the important enablers for advancing our digital economy and also addressing some of the long-standing issues that we have been facing as a continent. I live in Accra. From Accra to Kenya, there's a direct flight. But if I want to send money from Accra to Kenya, it has to go through a third country. In the protocol on digital trade, we eliminate this cost of currency convertibility. We enable payments in local currency. igniting small medium enterprises' capacity to contribute to Africa's economy, there is no reason why there should not be interoperability of payments in local currency. And where you eliminate this barrier of the cost of trade, the cost of access to markets through a payment system, I believe that we will be enabling the inclusion of farmers, of young people, to contribute to Africa's vision of a continent that trades with herself, using the tools available at her own disposal.
Your Excellency, Africa, if it was a country on its own, with its GDP, will sit comfortably as a G7 country. Of course, you talked about the fragmentation and the need to take advantage of the digital protocol on digital trade to connect the continent and use those rails to drive the integration we need to see. Now, you talked about the mobility skills passport as well, which we have so much youth who are unemployed, who have so much expertise and competences, but they don't know each other. For an SME to move his product from Nairobi to, say, Dakar, the process of just being able to know who to deal with, how to get the goods into the shop. The Indian SME can easily produce and get his products in Africa. The Chinese SME can get their products in. But Ethiopian SME does not know how to get his products onto Dakar. So how do you think, using between the digital, some of the instruments of the AFCFTA that you have, you've talked about payments, which I believe is PAPS, PAPS, that convertibility. How do you see the other instruments like the AFCFTA Hub and the digital ID identifier that you're currently working on now, helping to make people accessible so that SMEs can be visible to banks, accessible to resources, but also be able to know logistics and all of those things that are important to interconnect for this particular integration to happen?
The easiest part, I believe, the ministers of trade have achieved it, and that is negotiating an agreement that will enable our SMEs to expand. The more difficult part is exactly the point you make. How do we get our small, medium enterprises to take advantage of this market? The tools that we're introducing, payments, for example, the AFCFTA Trade Hub, these are tools that enable our businesses to have business connectivity, to have market intelligence, know-how of different markets and regions across the continent, know your customer, all of these very, very important aspects of conducting business across borders, which ordinarily would come at a great cost for a business. But through this, which we worked together on as Afro Champions and AFCFTA, through the Trade Hub, small, medium enterprises are able to know with certainty, through the AFCFTA number, with certainty who they are conducting business with, the history of that business, the strength of that business, and so on. And these are tools that, again, I want to stress, are intended to ensure inclusion. The big corporations in Africa don't really need us. They can get market access far easier. But the SMEs and the informal traders and the young people, this is where we must focus to ensure that they are part and they benefit from this significant market. So the AFCFTA hub that we worked on with Afro Champions is very, very important in that regard. And we already see there are millions of SMEs that are onboarded on the AFCFTA hub with the objective of enhancing market access across the regions of our continent. Even where we live in West Africa, market access between, let's say, Togo and Nigeria is difficult. And so these tools that we are introducing enable the business connectivity, particularly for SMEs.
I'm going to come to you for a panel, not a question, but a message for stakeholders that are here. We have presidents here, we have heads of, we have regulators, we have also business people, and of course, DFIs. I guess my my question to you is if you had a message to give, because you've talked about how this connecting pieces, if you take connecting regulators across the continent, for example, whether it's customs regimes, food and drug agencies, if they are not interlinked, it will be very difficult for goods showing at the border to know where it's coming from. Each country has their own digital systems, but they are not integrated to digital systems across, and this is why the gateway and the hub is so useful. And then also being able to understand within the countries itself, if the digital systems are not integrated, then it becomes very, very difficult to connect with 55 countries. And so where do you see the stumbling blocks in building this? Because you mentioned that this is very difficult, that's the difficult part. And what message do you have to? Is it the regulators? Is it the business people? I believe everybody has a role to play, but to make this kickoff, what would be your message to this gathering of committed Accra Reset compatriots for us to focus on going forward?
Well, our leaders have set the vision. Their job now for us is to, again, design the tools to implement the vision. Regarding the digitization of our economy as a continent, what I see as a challenge, which we can overcome, by the way, is interoperability. Whether we are talking about interoperability of payments or interoperability of digital systems, custom systems, enabling efficient movement of goods, recognition on digital platforms of one another's medicines, pharmaceutical products. So I believe we have to focus on this issue of building an interoperable digital African economy without each individual country losing the right to regulate. That's very, very important, that we retain the right to regulate, but we focus on building a digital economy that is interoperable. And I believe that is a challenge that is achievable.
Your Excellency, I know you have to run. Thank you very much for your time, but I would like to tell everyone that the After Hub is live. Everybody needs to have their AFCFTA number. Once you go to the AFCFTA Secretariat website, and then together with that, Accra Reset is launching the Mobility Skills Passport that will enable all our youth now to be able to have certified, basically it becomes their LinkedIn that is verifiable by the organizations they represent and the skills that they provide, so that they don't have to move across borders to work. They can still stay where they are, and certainly not move seeking greener pastures elsewhere where there's so much to do on the continent. So with that, I would like to thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And hand over back to Omar, my co-moderator.
Thank you.
So the next segment is what we call global engagement. So Africa's new terms for global engagement, given the, I'd say, the rupture that people are mentioning. So without further ado, I'd like to call upon His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt, Mr. Abdelati, please. Okay, so before we get to Mr. Abdelati, I'd like to call upon Baroness Jennifer Chapman, who was the co-host of the Africa Development Fund replenishment and became a great friend of Africa following the successful 11 billion replenishment. So Baroness Chapman, if I can invite you to make your remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Honourable President. Allow me to stand on existing protocols. The Honourable Minister, Baroness Chapman, had to return to London yesterday evening, so she's asked me to say a few words on her behalf. I'm Darren Welsh. I'm the British Ambassador here and the permanent representative, and a great pleasure to be amongst you. Thank you, President, and the panel for the leadership you are showing in driving the Accra reset. We think it's an ambitious and necessary shift towards a fairer, more equitable, global, South-led system. Your leadership is setting pace the reforms that the global system urgently needs. I think, as you said, it's really important that we do what we said we would do and we don't keep layering on new initiatives. You've called this the ADDIS reckoning. Reckoning in English has a slightly sort of ominous overtone. It's a real call to take stock and to acknowledge where things are going well and where they're going less well, and to recommit ourselves to doing better. I think that's very much the spirit you have set today. There's been a lot of talk about sovereignty, and sovereignty is clearly very important, but let's not think of sovereignty as separateness. I think sovereignty is critical, but it is the basis for collaboration. Collaboration as equal partners in respect, seeking mutual understanding and the greater good. And I think, Honourable President, we should be heeding your call for solidarity and alignment. That's exactly what we need. I recognise the agenda is very broad. We just heard about the Continental Free Trade Agreement. And it is unacceptable, a tragedy, a waste that only 16% of Africa's trade is intra-Africa. The potential is massive to expand that. At the same time, of course, very pleased that African countries are able to access the UK markets duty-free and quota-free. So much potential expansion and to help meet Africa's ambitions for the prosperity, dignity of its people. Allow me to say a couple of words about global health as part of this broader reset, if you will permit that. So the United Kingdom is heavily invested in the global health system. We recognise, and have for a long time, that your health is our health and our health is your health, and we're only healthy when we're all healthy together. And I was the UK's global health director during the pandemic and saw the stark reality of that. And there will be more pandemics. That's a certainty. What's optional is how we work together to respond to those. So the UK is heavily invested in the global health architecture, and we have a vision for that architecture to be more streamlined, more effective, multilateral system that focuses on the things that cannot be done at national or regional level. We want to see stronger collaboration across global health institutions, UN agencies, and the international financial institutions to eliminate duplication, reduce fragmentation, and ensure that the investments we're making align behind your national priorities. So as you take forwards the reset, you have the United Kingdom's very strongest support in respect and partnership. Your agenda is exactly the right one. So let's work together to accelerate the delivery. As the Honourable President said, it's time to reform. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the UK hosting the G20 in 2027, we look forward to greater collaboration. So we're running a little bit behind schedule, so I'd like to call upon Madam Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to join me on stage, and Mr. Anton Leis Garcia, who's the Director General of the Development Agency of Spain, to also join me on stage for a quick fireside chat around global partnerships. Madam, it's great to see you in your city, as they say. This is a second home for you. Please take a seat. Is Mr. Anton Leis Garcia with us? He's not, but you're joining us. Fantastic, please do. So, Madam, we'll start with you. So, the speaker who's just representing the UK said sovereignty is about unity, it's not about acting individually. So your job was to keep the continent united. So when you see bilateral deals with other countries, what are your thoughts in terms of the unity that we're supposed to have as a continent? You can take this.
Thank you very much. Greetings to all, but especially to the President who has convened us here. I think Africa is at a point which Kwame Nkrumah said a long time ago, you unite or perish. I think unity now is not a nice thing to have, it's for survival, as far as I can see. So it's important that as Africans, we see ourselves together and work together. And it shouldn't be a problem to move from one country to the other. For traders, we have a big potential, as it was said that it's a shame that we're only trading 16% amongst ourselves. So we should be trading amongst ourselves before the global trading with the world. So for me, this fragmentation is a big problem.
What does a sovereign partnership model actually look like in practice then?
In practice, it means we have if I were to say, a borderless Africa to start with. A borderless Africa, so that anyone can move across the continent and anyone can trade. We were talking about small and medium enterprises. They are the backbone of the economy at the moment in Africa, but they are constrained by the movements. So, and also the Pan-African payment system makes it borderless. The digital, in fact, maybe we should have, President, the African passport, why are we not issuing it to our citizens? It was launched in 2016 in Rwanda, and every country was supposed to issue it to its citizens. But I think Accra Reset must bring that on board. Because how are you sovereign if you are divided, if you are not one?
The fluent movement of talent, I think, is one of the core components of the Africa Reset. So if I come from a European perspective, so what is your reading of the rupture, some people call it, or G-1, as others also call it, so the world less the United States? So your government has always, or the current government has been one where they've been promoting justice and fairness. But what has changed in terms of the relationship between Africa and Europe, would you say? And do you see a shift in engagement, or is it still business as usual?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much. I'm excusing Mr. Anton Leys, Director of our Development Agency. He has been roped into a different event in the last minute. My name is Mencia Manso. I'm Global Health Ambassador for Spain, and I'm just visiting ADDIS here. Thank you very much for this opportunity to join you in this very important event. From the Spanish perspective, we are very eager to see this shift and this transformation in the global dialogue and the role of Africa in the global dialogue. We are Africa's closest neighbor from Spain. We have been collaborating, trading with Africa, and for us, Africa is viewed as a continent of opportunity, of exchange, of collaboration. The shift towards sovereignty, the Accra Reset stress on taking charge of the continent's economy and opening trade routes is very familiar to Spain. This is something we have also worked on over the past 50 years, and we have seen a transformation born from integration. So we believe this is an example, and we're here as partners to listen to what the needs are and how we can move along with our African partners and friends to make this possible, because Africa's prosperity will be Europe's prosperity and Spain's prosperity. So for us, this is what's important.
Thank you. On that positive note, we'll end it. A warm round of applause for Madame Dlamini Zuma and our representative from Spain. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass on back to Adam. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Omar. And what I am going to do is to just do a quick breeze in a town hall format, given that we have a little constraint on time, so that we can catch some of the quick highlights and allow our dignitaries to leave for the opening plenary. And in the process, I'll also be making special recognition to persons here as well who may not have noted. I think what I would like to do now, since we are still on the topic of global engagements, and since we have our co-chairs around of the high-level panel that the President announced President Mahama announced in Davos. So El Haj, see if you're here, I would like to invite you to speak. We have videos of all the other co-chairs, but we wouldn't have time to play them, so we would have them on the website of both Accra Reset and also the Office of the President. So El Haj, would you do us the honor of saying some brief words on behalf of your co-chairs on how you see the journey ahead?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much, President Mahama, for the trust bestowed in us to serve as co-chairs, a role that we take with great humility, but at the same time with resolve and commitment and a sense of urgency as we hear the calls from the African people, particularly the young ones. They're calling for peace, they're calling for dignity, they're calling for better health, and they're calling for sovereignty and self-reliance. We are very heartened to realize that leadership is listening to the call, and that is the spirit of the Accra Reset. Listening to the call by putting in motion a movement of self-reliance and sovereignty that is not meant to be done in isolation, but in partnership. And the high-level panel, which I have the honor to co-chair alongside other distinguished friends and colleagues, will definitely work in that spirit to engage, with very important stakeholders, some of them already present here in this room: Africa CDC, WHO, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria, Gavi, just to name a few. But the engagement, will continue. We have started work already, and then we are seeing some emerging strategic areas of focus that are articulated, around partnership and collaboration at local and regional level for production of vaccines and pharmaceuticals through a South-South collaboration, for example. We're also seeing a consolidation of systems emerging. How can we address the fragmentation that we've been talking about? We are also seeing the necessity for alignment and partnership. And now, we will only answer one call from you. We're going back to work. And thank you very much.
Thank you, El Haj Assi. El Haj Assi is the chairman of the Kofi Annan Foundation, among many, many, many other hearty words. I would like to welcome also His Excellency, former Prime Minister Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who is one of the guardians of Accra Reset and also one of the patrons of Afro Champions. Your Excellency, welcome. School's just coming from the prayer breakfast. I don't know how you managed to get here before President Obasanjo. He's coming, okay. All right, so moving along, given that we would like to now quickly move to the aspect of since we're still on global engagement, I'd like to bring Paulo Gomez and also our brother, Deputy Speaker of the Egyptian Parliament, but also the CEO of Chairman of Cleopatra Group. They are to talk about the financing aspect. So Paulo, if you stand, we'll direct a mic towards you. Is he still here? Is Paulo Gomez still here? Okay, there he is. Paulo Gomez represents the Southeast Africa Chamber. They are doing some magnificent work on shipping, among others. And so when we talk about this global stakeholder engagement, Singapore is one of those countries that have joined the Accra Reset, along with Indonesia and others. So Paulo, can you just say a few words about some of the work you're doing now with relation to the collaboration between the South and Africa using the chamber?
Thank you, Eden. Thank you, Mr. President. So I think, as Wankele said earlier, the vision has been set. And now I think the leadership has given us a set of roadmap. Our main challenge now as Africans is the sense of urgency and also implementation. And I think in terms of sense of urgency is that we need to take the opportunity of Accra Reset, the leadership of the president, to accelerate the execution. One thing that the Southeast Asians are teaching us, or at least the experience we can get from the Southeast Asians. When I say the Southeast Asian, it's the Singaporeans, the Malaysian, the Vietnamese, is that they have a very, very strong sense of urgency in implementation. So our engagement with them has enabled us to focus on getting the countries and the players we want to have to move things. It will be difficult to have all Africans to align on implementation. So the lesson here is that even if you have 1 or 2 or 3 countries, and then you have a coalition of willing, you need to move. The rest will join. In doing that, the Southeast Asian also pay a very special attention to institutions and corporations. You need institutions to help you frame things, and you have corporations to help implement that. If you look at West Africa, and I think you will be part of the process, you see the role, for example, that AFC is playing in terms of the financial institutions in West Africa. If you look at what ASCA is doing in terms of airlines, and you see the experience of having Ethiopia airline with other African countries, the rest is history. You see now how the issue of traveling has been much easier in West Africa. So those are the lessons. I think sense of urgency, start with the group of the willings, the coalition of the willings, put institution in place to support the corporations, the company you need for execution. So those are the messages that I would like to give.
Thank you, thank you. Mohamed Abulani, in 1 minute, can you stand and yes, in 1 minute, just in 1 minute. How you advancing Egypt's prosperity sphere with what you're doing in business, very quickly in 1 minute.
Can you allow me only?
He's also the Deputy Speaker of the Egyptian Parliament as well.
I'm so glad to hear today sovereignty, African sovereignty. Indeed, President Mahama has been brief, a very short discussion, but he insists for one word. I would like to highlight this word. He started to talk about execution in his speech. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the key for all what we have been talking. We talk about African collaboration among the past 50 years, but the execution is less than what we talk. Mm-hmm. I think it's a moment to move together. I think it's a moment to have our goals and to talk about global Africa moving toward the world. Mm-hmm. This is the mission. I think in 2 hours from now, all the presidents will stay to discuss and to decide some initiatives, some programs. Mm-hmm. Which kind of initiative we can suggest? Mm-hmm. I think one of these things we talk, and suffering in Africa is debt, African debts. Why we don't talk about the same as African Paris debt, which is negotiating the debts for all the world? for the creditors. We talk about also African creditors. We move to discuss to find a good solution for finance for African project. Why about club for minerals, African minerals, to negotiate together, to address together our potential with our special policies and special direction. A lot of initiative. I'm dreaming as a president, as an Egyptian, to find all the ships moving through the Nile to penetrate 11 countries to go to the Mediterranean with trade. I have a lot of ambitions to talk, and I know the time is limited, but a lot of things to talk. Let us talk about initiative. Let us talk about New Africa. Let us promote Africa. Let us talk about branding Africa worldwide. Thank you.
And since he spoke about execution and sovereignty, in that spirit, I'd like to acknowledge His Excellency Desalegn, because he's leading, currently he's the visionary behind the Accra School of Governance. And this Accra School of Governance is going to be training, we have Baba, His Excellency in our midst, President Obasanjo. I asked him the same question, Baba. But you know, this is his home, so he has short corners, he knows how to. Okay. So former Prime Minister Desalegn is leading the Africa School of Governance currently, and President Mahama spoke about the negotiation capacities. So what the Africa School of Governance is seeking to do is to work with countries and train them to have the high levels deal negotiation capacities that we'll be discussing in the future. At this point, I'd like to invite Minister Kando from Ghana to say a few words, and then I guess invite the President to give his remarks, or probably invite Baba or Ellen Johnson to give their remarks, and then the President gives his closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, my brother.
But before you come, or when you are done, I need to acknowledge a few people who are here, because I see Mark Dybel, I see Rockefeller Naveen, and many other amazing people who are here that are hiding. So, Mark, could you raise your hand, please? Naveen? Is Naveen here? I see Taj from Africa CDC. So, Mr. President, you have your whole partnerships of Accra research teams here. And so I'll hand over to the Minister, and then, of course, thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother. Your Excellency, President Mahama, I will always want to say that President Mahama is not only talking about sovereignty or the Accra reset, he is walking the talk in Ghana. And because I am the minister responsible for health, I would want to restrict myself in the health sector. Since the president took office, a lot of reforms is taking place in the health sector. And we are taking our destiny into our own hands and, investing in the health sector where it is needed most. And I'll share one example with you. We have what we call national health insurance in Ghana. And the national health insurance was capped. It's as a result of payment of levies. And the capping amount was, deposited in the consolidated funds. Since the president took over, he says, no, we'll have to invest whatever we take in the name of health in the health sector. And so we raked in not less than $350 million in addition in the health sector. And as I speak to you now, he's tackling the most important aspect in the health sector. For example, the NCDs are killing the people at an alarming rate. In fact, about 42% of our mortalities are attributable to the NCDs. And therefore, he said, look, we are going to establish another fund to take care of the treatment of non-communicable diseases. And so when you come to Ghana today, we have the Mahama Care, which is fully in motion. Not only that, as part of our effort to achieve the universal health coverage, he says, look, since everybody is contributing to the national health insurance levy, Ghanaians deserve the basic benefit. And what is the basic benefit here? At least everybody must enjoy what we call free primary health care. And so plans are far in advance. And he has instructed us that we shouldn't go beyond April. We should roll out free primary health care in Ghana. And
He's also determined to make Ghana the pharmaceutical hub. Just last year, he pledged $50 million to be invested in the manufacturing sector. And in Ghana, as you all know, we have the robust regulatory agencies. Our FDA is at maturity level 3. We have the National Vaccine Institute. And as I speak to you now, at least Atlantic Life Sciences, one of the leading manufacturers, has produced the anti-snake venom serum. And we are determined to end the year with not less than 2 vaccines. And so a lot is happening, and I believe that as a continent, we must take our own destiny into our own hands. We have the market, and we must be determined to change the narrative. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. May I now invite His Excellency the President, since he has to leave, to make a brief intervention. And I believe you would hand over the baton to the able hands of Her Excellency Baba and our mother, Salif Johnson. Oh, Johnson Salif. She always reminds me. Okay.
Being called upon to champion so many things, and so I'll have to run and hand over since Baba has come. Indeed, he's been the guiding spirit behind this whole Accra reset. Him, Mark Daible, and all the guys who came to my residence. And we had that useful discussion that set this whole ball rolling. We have Her Excellency Johnson Salif here, and so she'll also have the opportunity to make a statement. So don't let my absence end the breakfast. There's still more food you can continue to eat while you enjoy this session. My task is simple, just to express my gratitude to all those who have spoken this morning. I want to thank Amina. She's left, but she gave us a very inspiring statement. I want to thank the representative of the President of the DRC. DRC is at the epicenter of the resource curse. And so when we talk about the Accra reset and natural resource sovereignty over our natural resource, then DRC is right at the core of what we're talking about. So when he talks about certification of their minerals, Great Lakes certificates for their minerals, to be able to know what minerals are extracted generally in the interest of the people of DRC and those that are extracted due to the wars, then I guess he makes a very good point. The world has closed its eyes to the carnage in DRC because it needs the coltan, it needs the tantalum and all that to do all the digital devices and systems that we have. But I guess he made a great point there, and we should look at it. Wamkele also brought in the dimension of the African Free Trade Area, especially with digital payments. One of the issues he raised was, why, as an SME in Accra or Ghana, I want to export my goods to my compatriot in Kenya, and yet I must take my local currency and change it into some third-party currency, and then it's changed again to pay my colleague SME in Kenya. And so the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is a thing whose time has come. And with urgency, I should be able to ship my goods to Kenya and get paid in my cedis rather than in some foreign currency. And so that's something we need to work on. Aside from that, the logistics of moving goods from place to place, I believe it's beginning to change. It's not that hopeless. Like our brother said, Paulo, the work of ASCAI in West Africa is connecting almost all the cities in West Africa to each other. You can catch a flight now any day on ASCAI to Liberia, to Guinea, wherever you want to go in West Africa. And you can join the long-haul flights to South Africa. Ethiopian is doing a great job servicing almost every country. Several years before, it wasn't like that. I have a friend there used to be Air Afrique. I mean, he was going to Gambia, and he checked in, and they took off. After several hours of delays, he got to Gambia, his bag didn't come, and he stayed there for a week. His bag never came, he had to buy new clothes. He arrived back in Accra to go and complain about his lost bag, and they were loading his bag onto the flight to Gambia. And so he says, that's my bag, that's my bag. And so they took it out for him. Things have progressed. There are now reefer vessels taking cargo that arrive in Tema and redistributing them all along the west coast from Dakar to Douala. So I guess that the logistics will come. Once the supply and demand is there, the logistics will follow. There's a new ferry service being advocated by the private sector to service the west coast of Africa. So take trucks and cargo from Accra to Apapa in Lagos, from Apapa to Monrovia in Liberia. And I think that all that would improve the logistical situation. Baroness Chapman, this representative, the ambassador, the high commissioner, has said something profound. He says, when Africa prospers, Europe prospers. And that's true. Africa's prosperity is not a threat to anybody in this world. Africa's prosperity will consolidate world prosperity. And it will be a positive for this world, not a threat. And so we want to thank Baroness Chapman for those kind words. El-Hajj spoke on behalf of our stakeholders, and we're happy that they are sacrificing their time and effort to join this great movement to create prosperity for Africa. Paulo raised a very important issue. He says we come with the decisions, we agree, we do the frameworks. What is missing is urgency in implementation. Urgency in implementation. We take time and we behave like time is waiting for us. And so Accra research is a good idea, but let's implement urgently. If parts of the continent are not ready, let's have a coalition of the willing who move this as fast as possible and let all the others follow and join. Let me thank our Egyptian minister for the very inspiring words he said. It transported me back to Kwame Nkrumah's time. He spoke, like a true Pan-Africanist. I thank you very much. There are issues, and I'll just give one example from Ghana. Just before I left, we have a crisis in our cocoa sector. We set a producer price for the farmer. At the time we set the price of cocoa on the international market was 7,200. We have a policy in Ghana where we give the farmer 70% of the world market price. The other 30% is used for administration, to supply fertilizers to the farmers, to provide scholarships for their children and all that kind of thing. The CD's value was 11.5 CDs to $1. After we set the producer price, the world market price has declined to 4,200. The CD has appreciated in value to 10.7 to the dollar. And so suddenly it means that for every ton you buy at the producer price, you have a gap, and so we'll be losing. And so we held a crisis meeting, and we took decisions. And one of the major problems is that to buy cocoa from our own farmers, we rely on funding from outside. And you know what the collateral for the funding is, our own cocoa beans. And so you have to collateralize the beans to the financier, buy the beans and just ship them, and they pay you the international market price. So one of the key decisions we've taken is that we're going to stop foreign funding for the purchase of our cocoa. We are going to raise domestic bonds. We have enough CDs in Ghana to pay for our cocoa. We're going to raise domestic bonds, buy our own cocoa. We don't need to collateralize the beans. I know the interesting part. We have the capacity to process 400,000 tons of those beans, processing capacity in Ghana. But because the beans are collateralized, we cannot even allocate those beans to the local processors. We have to ship all the beans outside. Now, if we buy the beans ourselves, we can take 400,000 tons out of the beans and give to our local processors to add value. That is what the Accra research is about. I say by 2030, There are not going to be any raw mineral ores leaving Ghana. You're not going to ship manganese ores out of Ghana raw. You're not going to ship bauxite ore out of Ghana raw. You're not going to ship iron ore out of Ghana raw. You must process all that locally. That is the only way we can provide opportunities for our young people. Our young people are not as patient as our generation. They want to see that progress and prosperity today. And that is why Accra Reset has that urgency that we need to implement in order that we stop our young people from braving the dangers of the Sahara and the Mediterranean to try to get to Europe to look for opportunity. And so I want to say thank you to all of you who found time to attend. And as we said, this is the ADDIS reckoning. From ADDIS, we must stop the talking and we must start implementing. Thank you very much.
I think Mr. President deserves a louder round of applause. Thank you, Mr. President. And as the President takes leave,
please be seated. After President John Mahama has spoken and has thanked everybody, that should have been the end. That I will never allow the end to be the end when the end has not been the end. And that's why I have taken the microphone. President Mahama, just before you go, 2 minutes. Now you know that where you are going will not start before 12. You know that. Just sit down. Sit down for 2 minutes. I have 4 things to make. I have 4 points to make. Just 4 points. President yes, now this is a retired general. No. 4 points. I want to thank you most sincerely because people don't know how much effort you have put into this. I want to thank you most sincerely for the effort you have put into this. Accra Reset is to get us to know and to do what we should do for ourselves. Now, and when I came to you, you said to me, look, the trailer of the economic morass that you have taken over, you don't want to take over any other trailer. I said, no, I'm not giving you another trailer. I'm only putting a suitcase in your existing trailer. Carry it along. And you agree to carry it along. And you are carrying it along very, very admirably. I want to thank you for that. A second thing that the point I want to make is that both internally and externally, the money to develop Africa is there. Is there. The problem is mobilizing the internal resources adequately, without corruption, without waste, without unnecessary luxury, and to channel it to development. We've been told that we can mobilize up to $4 trillion internally. And if we can do that, then that will go a long way, a long way. And then, of course, the money for development from outside can be incentivized to come in and to stay in and to develop Africa. That is the second point I want to make. The third point is, again, what you have accepted part responsibility for. Look, there are many countries in Africa already who gave visa on arrival. Many. Now, we have approved here in AU what they call AU passport. I don't know if it has been issued to anybody. Everybody I ask, have you got AU passport? They said they haven't got. Not even not even the chairperson of the AU Commission. He hasn't got the AU passport. Now, the point is this. We can get those countries that give visas on arrival. Why don't they come together and make themselves what you yourself, President Mahama, called League of African Free Movement Countries, and then agree to give among themselves. And we have identified about 12 of them who must be willing and ready, and let them abolish visa among themselves and be able to. And then within 2 or 3 years, 30 or more other countries will join them. Let us start and then go on. And then you have free movement of people. Then you will have free movement of goods. And then, of course, goods and services and free movement of fund. And you talk about that. The African Bank has been talking about that. Now, I want to buy things in Ghana. I don't need to be looking for dollar and euro when I have my naira. And the man who I will buy it from in Ghana, all he wants is cedis. Then why do I have to go and look for dollar? Why do I have to go and look for euro? Let me pay in naira that I have, and let him take his money in cedis there. Let our central banks work with African Bank and all those. You talk of digital. I don't know what digital money is. Just give me naira and pay cedi. Now, that is number 3. Is that number 4? Okay, if that is number 4, I stop there. Then now you can go.
So as His Excellency the President takes leave of us, we'll invite President Obasanjo back. And please, there's a lot of breakfast around, so I hope you made time to get some food. So what we'd like to do now, is to capture just some moments that we missed because we had to flip the program upside down. We had talked about the whole global health architecture and the work that the panel are going to be doing. So at this point, I would like to invite our production team to show a video that gives you a glimpse of the work that the co-chairs and also the panel will be doing as far as the global health reform piece is concerned. So please.
Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to address such distinguished authorities and representatives. Healthy governance today has developed in a way that separates knowledge from production and production from power. When technology, manufacturing, and the standards are controlled elsewhere, we cannot call what remains sovereignty. Health can contribute to an equitable world and to achieving sustainable development. That's why the high-level panel will examine how science, regulation, and industrial capacity can be rebased in the Global South. Health investment must strengthen domestic systems. Without a more symmetrical distribution of productive and innovation capacities, the growing concentration and monopolization of health will render national and global responses based on universality and equity unfeasible. Brazil is firmly committed to this agenda. Since the beginning of President Lula's current administration, the health economic industrial complex has been revitalized, with one of its flagship initiatives being the development and production of an innovative dengue vaccine. This commitment is also reflected in Brazil's presidency of the G20 and in the launch of the Global Coalition for Local and Regional Production, Innovation and Equitable Access. South-South cooperation, aligned with principled global partnership, can redefine global health. That's how health becomes a multiplier of national prosperity. The question is how to do it. The answer is within reach.
May I now invite Her Excellency, former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, to give our closing remarks. But while she's coming, I'd like to also recognize Dr. Hanan Baki, who is here representing Dr. Janabi from WHO. Thank you very much for coming. Use the mic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Eden. I'll do what President Obasanjo did. Our dear Baba, he stood right here to talk, and I think I'll just do the same and be very short, knowing the time. I listened to the international news last night, and we heard that the Secretary of State of the United States said the international order of rights has ended. And I say that that is evidenced by the global situation as we know it today, the global turbulence that we all are feeling, evidenced by sharp decline in international aid, the dismantling of the institutions of the United Nations, the fallout of multilateralism and global cooperation, the rearming of the global north by the powerful nations. And so all of this tells us how we can be grateful, because it says we are all on our own. every nation, every region, every is on their own. And we're grateful to President Mahama because the crisis of the international order says it's time for Africa to be on its own. And that's what President Mahama is doing when he talks about the Africa reset and Africa renegotiation. My task was to launch, or is to launch, the Sovereign Negotiation Initiative. That initiative seeks to look into the program that will look at the three major objectives of the reset. The first one being a sovereign economic transition through the financial architecture. And we know that on that, our G20, where African nations have a major part to play, has long been talking about the scale for the support of African economies. We know how long they have argued for having the reserves of Africa held somewhere else, and the margins of return on those reserves are so small that the negotiation to do this is long, laborious for so long. And so we also know that the second objective of the reset is to ensure the advancement of health of institutions. And that is so important. The advancements of borders to ensure that our regional efforts through the Africa CTA and others will be able to be more vigorous, more effective, more achievable. So the Africa negotiations program, sovereign negotiations program that we are going to be promoting is one that simply says taking all of these things into effect, they're negotiating for matters relating to health, matters relating to trade, matters relating to our extractive industries, which has always been discussed, are going to be that which turns through our effort, carrying our seat to the table with equality, is going to enable us to be able to turn our aspirations into realities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I didn't know how you managed to memorize all of that in just in minutes. At this point, Your Excellencies, I want to thank everyone. I'm just going to look around the room again. I see Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, who is President of Village Reach, who is here. He has been with us since the beginning, from Accra Reset. Before he became Accra Reset, when he was the Africa Sovereignty Summit that Honorable Minister Kando hosted with President in Ghana, which gave impetus to this movement called Accra Reset. So, Dr. Ogwell, thanks for coming. I have to go back and say a special thanks to Naveen and Mark, who have been so modest, don't want to be seen or heard. You heard President Mahama talk about that very interesting meeting in his house in July, I believe it was, or June, when he took the mantle to lead this initiative. Mark was there with us. Mark is former director of Global Fund, as well as also, and who knows, I mean, we might find him back there again. And also at Georgetown University. And Mark, thanks so much. Mark is leading in support of Accra Reset, an initiative called the Communities of Practice, which the President was going to talk about in his closing remarks, but we'll have the speech online. Communities of Practice is a very powerful instrument for understanding what countries want in order to drive the sovereign aspects of Accra Reset. Countries must lead. We must take advantage of innovation and technology, and we must foster public-private partnerships. So thanks, Mark, with the strong support of Naveen from Rockefeller, Vice President of Rockefeller, and his team, William Asiko and others. I see Ambassador Lazarus Kapambwe and Bazu, who are doyen, as they say in French, of Pan-Africanism, who worked very closely with Madame Nkosazana Zuma at the AU when Agenda 2063 was still in its or before it was even incubated or conceived. It eventually was born here in this very same Addis Ababa. And we're happy to continue to rely on your support and your inspiration. And since President Chilema is also a member of the Presidential Council, we'll be working with you, and of course, South Africa as well with Bazu. Bazu now is doing business. He now runs Anglo, so he's no longer a diplomat. Who else am I missing? I know we have a lot of partners in the room. Some have left already. But at this point, I would like to, if Minister Kando doesn't have anything to say. Yes, I already acknowledged our sister from WHO. Has she left? Did she leave? Okay. WHO has left. So I think it's, oh no, but I know I might get in trouble for acknowledging this person because they don't want to be, they want to be felt, but not seen or heard. With the power of the microphone invested in my hands, I'm going to thank Toko from Gates Foundation. Toko, is Pauline still here or is left? Okay, so Gates Foundation has been a very silent supporter of the Accra Reset Initiative, and so I'd like to thank them very much for being here and to continue to give us support. I see the Pandemic Fund in the house as well, representing Priya. And who else am I seeing? I see Kwesi Pratt, who is my brother from Ghana, who normally doesn't appear in pictures, but we are privileged to have him here with us. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Sorry? The minister? Is he gone? Okay, minister is fine. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Oh, Didier. How can I forget Didier Akwete? Didier, you have to stand for everybody to see you because you're too modest. Didier is also, is currently with Africa Development Bank. The president was supposed to be here, but he was held up in another engagement, and so we're happy to have Didier here. Didier is a very, very powerful brain for driving human resource on the continent and also driving SMEs who are the base of our economic integration agenda. I see Zama from Wellcome Trust. So again, pardon me if I left anyone out. You are all distinguished fellows, and we're so thankful that you're able to join us here at this ADDIS reckoning of Accra Reset. We'll see you in the next journey along. That will take us probably through the World Health Assembly, the spring meetings, World Health Assembly, and hopefully to the UNGA in New York. Thank you very much. Lovely.